Toya is your regular typical pathetic loser who was reincarnated in a magical world after being accidentally isekai'd by a god as a teenager. He lost everything except his smartphone, which the god fills with magical powers as compensation for his wrongful death. However, just before that happened, he wakes up in a new world, and as he looks around, he receives a call from God, who tells him he already tweaked the map and navigation on his phone to suit his present world. After hanging up, he starts to walk. Following the navigation on his phone, he wonders if he can get food and water with the currency of his previous world. Just as he continues walking, a greedy rich man on a chariot passing by stops immediately and comes running to him like an idiot to ask where he got his clothes, offering to pay a lot of money for them. He takes Toya to his fashion house to get him new clothes while he takes Toya's unique clothes. He also pays in gold coins in exchange, and as Toya prepares to leave, he asks the rich man for the nearest inn, after which the man describes how to get to the Silver Moon Inn. As he tries to find his way there, he overhears two disgusting men trying to bully two girls who had just sold a precious artifact to them by paying less than the initial agreement. Toya immediately approaches the scene and tells the girl he will pay a gold coin for the object, to which they instantly agree, so he picks up a stone and breaks the artifact in the rogue's hand immediately, annoying them. An idiot immediately charges at him, but he dodges and knocks him to the ground. After beating them, he offers the girls the gold coin, and they introduce themselves as twins named Elza and Linz. They soon realize he is a foreigner, and he tells them he is looking for Silver Moon Inn, which happens to be exactly where they stay. After later checking in at the inn, the girls discuss getting jobs only from the guild due to the challenge they just faced on their last job. And on hearing this, Toya wonders what that is and immediately states that he would like to join them. The next day at the guild, they check the notice board for the available missions, but Toya can't read any of the writings, surprising the two girls. They soon decide on the mission to take on, and Toya is registered as a guild member and given a weapon. They immediately set out for the mission and isekai the monsters without batting an eye. After they return, Toya, who had seen that the girls displayed magic during the mission, tells them to teach him how to read and write and also how to wield magic. They are surprised upon hearing this and ask if he has aptitudes for magic, stating that no individual can use any magic without first having the aptitude for it. He doesn't understand the shit they are telling me but replies that he doesn't know, but that he will soon have the aptitudes since an old man already gave him approval for the use of magic. He then asks how to know if he has an aptitude for magic. So Linz brings out some spell stones and starts with one of them, which tests for water aptitude. Toya tests it also and surprisingly summons water too. They head outside, and as he tests all the spell stones, the girls are shocked that he can use all the 6 elements. And Linz asks who the fuck he is as she can only use 3, which is even a very rare feat. He soon tries the null magic spellstone, which helps the users use any personal magic peculiar to them, and when the girls tell him about the gate spell, which helps in transportation between locations by creating a portal, Toya tries it and successfully activates it, shocking them. They later return to the inn, where some ladies come to ask them for suggestions on what to add to the restaurant's menu that women would enjoy. And Toya suggests ice cream, which they haven't heard of before. He checks his phone, gives them the recipe, and goes on to produce some cream, which he then gives them to taste. And they realize that his cream is something women will definitely enjoy.
What do you mean by that?
Following this, Toya and the girls take up a mission to deliver a letter to the royal capital. And on their way, they see a group of people gathered at a particular place and decide to check what's going on. As they approach the scene, they see a bunch of ugly men trying to attack a lady dressed in samurai clothing. The first idiot attacks her, but he only beats the air before getting knocked out in a hit. She starts to teach the idiots some moral lessons, surprising Toya and his friends, who are amused by her jujitsu fighting technique. However, her strength suddenly wanes because she is hungry, and as one of the guys attempts to hit her, Toya immediately activates earth magic and obstructs him with dust before delivering a kick. The other girls also join immediately in trashing the idiots, and after, they quickly run away to avoid being caught by the guards. The lady soon introduces herself as Ye, and as she talks with them, her stomach makes some growling sounds. They head to the restaurant where she embarrasses herself, eating like a glutton. And while they all discuss, Toya doesn't give a shit as his broke ass is only worried that this motherfucker is about to eat through his entire savings. After this, they all continue their journey to the royal capital with Yai, also tagging along since she was also headed there initially, and on their way, Toya goes through a book of magic, listing the different ways the null magic can be used. After going through some useless spells, he comes across one that can be used to draw distant objects into his hand. He practices it immediately and successfully draws Ye's head tie into his hand. Upon seeing this, Elze and Linz warn him not to use it for stealing and picking pockets, and he immediately tells them he wasn't even thinking of that, but was instead thinking it could be used for drawing their underwear to himself, scaring them. After a while, he perceives the smell of blood from afar, and they immediately head there. On reaching the location, they see some lizardmen and a man dressed in a cloak attacking some people, so they immediately intervene to save them. After beating a couple of lizards, more suddenly appear, and Linz realizes that the man is using the summoning magic to summon the lizardmen. So Toya activates null magic slip, which immediately causes him to fall, thus capturing him. The people who were saved come to appreciate them, and while they talk, a girl suddenly calls for help, screaming, and they rush there immediately to find that a man named Lee is gravely injured from an arrow and is almost dying. Toya asks Linz if she can heal him, but she replies that she can't as the arrow is lodged in his body, and even if she tries to heal his wound, the arrow will still be there. Toya thinks of a way and immediately activates the magic he learned earlier, suddenly drawing the arrow out into his hand. He then activates the healing magic, which instantly heals Liam completely. Liam thanks him and introduces himself as the butler of the Duke's family, and the girl is Sushi, the niece of the king. Upon hearing this, Elze, Linz, and Gie immediately bow down, making Toya wonder what the fuck they are doing, but he is told they are standing before a royal family. Lim asks Toya to come along, entrusting their protection into his hand, and he agrees since he and the girls are also headed for the royal capital. On reaching the capital, Sushi's father cheerfully welcomes him for saving his daughter, and while they later discuss, Toya learns that his wife, Ellen, is blind and no one has been able to cure her. Sushi tells him her mom would have been if someone had the ability of her grandfather, but the father tells her that no one can use the same magic since it's null magic. However, they hope to find someone with a magic similar to it. On hearing this, Linz and Elsa recommend Toya immediately, and he is taken to meet Ellen. He surprisingly heals her, and Sushi's father rewards him and his team with a huge amount of coins and the royal family's medals that allow a free pass through the checkpoints. After this, Toya and his sidekicks soon leave the royal castle, and following that, Ye is asked where she is heading from here, and she declares that she has decided to offer herself up to him.
Nice.
So they gladly welcome her into the guild as a member of the team. Following this, they take a walk across the royal capital, and as they observe the different species of beings around, the demi-humans, they see a girl looking lost, so they decide to approach her. They soon realize she's just an idiot who missed her way and got separated from her companions, so Toya offers to guide her using his smartphone. They later find her sister, who appreciates them for taking care of her sister. The two parties go their separate ways, and Toya returns to the inn with his girls. Some days later, he sees two stupid men still playing the shogi board game he had made for them a few days earlier, and he is surprised at how two broke-grown men can sit around wasting time like they've got investments working for them. While he watches them, Elze and Ye return with boxes of food, and they tell him to take one of the boxes to the Duke's family, which he reluctantly accepts. At the Duke's mansion, he presents the food and a shogi board as he helps the Duke to also waste his time. The next day, he and his team head to the guild to check which mission to take up next, and Toya suggests fighting against mega slimes, but the girls refuse as they hate any slimy substance other than his cream. Then he suggests another mission. On the mission, they head to the ruins of the old capital and quickly isekai the monsters. After, they wonder if there are any treasures within the ruins, so Toya uses his search magic to scan the area. He soon detects a historical relic, and they immediately head into the dungeon to find it. On their way, they come across a strange ancient magic script that they can't understand, and Toya decides to take a picture of it. They suddenly discover an earth spell stone, and Toya is asked to activate it by passing some mana into it. Upon doing that, the ancient script suddenly glows, and the secret door opens, leading them to the historical relic Toya initially detected. They move closer to the relic, wondering what it is, and as they examine it, Linz's light spell, which was providing illumination, suddenly starts to dwindle until it fades out, shocking them. The core of the relic suddenly begins to glow, and they instantly realize that it was absorbing the light. The relic immediately becomes activated, and they realize it's a magic beast, and not a historical relic as they had thought. Toya quickly activates the gate spell, instantly returning them outside, thus escaping, but the beast tells them you ain't go nowhere, immediately breaking out of the dungeon and beginning to attack them. Linz immediately activates her fire magic, sending fire arrows at the magic beast, but it only absorbs her magic and becomes stronger. Ye also stupidly charges at it with a mere sword, and she is shocked the beast isn't affected. Elsa also makes her move but to no avail, and Toya immediately tries to use the slip magic, but the beast maneuvers its way from his magic path. He then tells Linz to use an indirect, which she immediately does by dropping an ice block on the beast, restricting it, before Elsa deals a final hit, cutting off its legs. However, just as they rejoice that they've won, the beast suddenly regenerates and attacks Elsa. Toya goes to heal her and wonders what the beast's weakness could be. Then, he suddenly finds a way, remembering the principle from the shogi game he spent the last few days playing. He moves closer to the beast and immediately draws out its core using magic and throws it towards Elsa, who destroys it with her Mega Punch, thus defeating the monster. They immediately visit the Duke to report what happened, with Toya also showing him the picture he took, and the Duke tells him that this might be a clue to the mystery behind the capital moving, and asks him to help get to the root of this. Toya and his sidekicks then leave, and the following day, Toya returns to meet the Duke, but realizes he is rushing out to a place. On seeing him, the Duke tells him to come along as his brother has been poisoned. On their way, the Duke suspects that the culprits responsible for the poisoning must be the nobles who are against his brother's alliance with the kingdom of Mismeda. Toya is surprised and asks how the this concerns him, and the Duke tells him he wants him to use the same magic he used on his wife or his brother. On reaching his brother's mansion, they meet an ugly baldy referred to as Count Balsa, who tells them they have found that the culprit is the ambassador who came from Mismeda, and that her head should be harvested immediately. But Alfred, the Duke, tells him to cut the crap as his brother would be the judge of that. Balsa makes an insulting statement, and Toya rewards his ugly ass with a slip. On reaching his brother's chamber, Toya gets into action and activates the healing magic, Recovery, which shocks the others that he can use the Lost Null magic capable of healing any abnormal condition. The king becomes instantly healed, exciting everyone, and Charlotte, the family's official mage, tells him how surprised she is. Meanwhile, the princess is already crushing on him and decides to shoot her shot immediately. The king wonders why Mismeda will want to isekai him, as he finds it difficult to believe. But General Leon tells him that he collapsed just after he drank the wine the ambassador of Mismeda gave him. He then tells them to summon the ambassador immediately. Upon seeing the ambassador, Toya discovers it's the sister of the girl who had lost her way back at the royal capital, and he tells the king to allow him into the dining room where the incident happened. In the dining room, he uses the search magic to search for any trace of poison in the room, and after that, he requests that everyone who was in the room at the time of the incident be gathered together. After they all gather, they ask him why he called for them, and he tells them that since everyone was present at the time of the incident, it means that one of them is the culprit. He begins to feel like Sherlock Holmes, but they aren't impressed, being disappointed by his stupidity. Balsa calls him an idiot, saying they already know it's the ambassador, but Toya replies that he will solve the case. He brings out a bottle of wine, pours it into a glass of wine, and then offers it to General Leon to drink to prove that the wine isn't poisoned. Then he pours the wine again into the king's glass and gives it to Count Balsa to drink, but he becomes scared. However, Toya reassures him that General Leon just proved that there is no problem with the wine. Balsa continues to fear even this, but he is forced to drink it anyway, and he immediately begins to act like he has been poisoned. Toya shockingly states that he already wiped the poison from the glass and asks why he is still acting like that. Balsa is shocked, and Toya explains to everyone that the king's glass had been laced with poison. Upon realizing he has been exposed, Balsa tries to escape, but Toya makes him hug the ground again. Yumina, the princess, gets even more attracted to him, and later tells her parents she would love to marry Toya, shocking him. The king accepts, but Toya immediately objects, saying they don't know anything about him yet. However, the queen tells him not to worry as Yumina possesses mystic eyes of intuition, which can see into one's character. Toya then says that they are too young to marry as his country only allows marriage for guys at the age of 18 and 16 for females. However, the king tells them to wait 2 more years to get to know themselves till Toya is 18, and if he doesn't still think he can marry her, then it will be cancelled. Following this, Yumina joins Toya's guild team, and they set out for their first mission. While they walk through a forest, Yumina tells them that she has a Bachelor of Arts degree in archery and magic, and she immediately demonstrates the dark magic, summoning some ugly, malnourished wolves, shocking them. The wolves are sent into the forest to look for monsters, and after a while, they return, escaping from some huge gorilla-like monsters. Toya and the others immediately start to combat them. After e-sickening them, Yumina begins to teach Toya how to use the summoning magic. He summons the highest level of the magic beast, White Monarch, and names it Kohaku. Kohaku requests permission to be by his side at all times, but Toya replies that there's no way he's walking around with such a huge tiger, and Kohaku immediately transforms into a small cat, which the girls find cute. On their next mission, they are required to investigate a slime researcher's castle, but the girls are sad at the thought that they will be dealing with slimes that have once melted their clothes. On reaching the castle, Toya is given a blissful welcome with a knock to his head by one of the slimes, shocking the girls as they have witnessed such type of slime before. They head inside to check the researcher's documents for some useful information, and after that, they explore a different part of the castle, where they come across some green slimes. Linz immediately tries to burn them with her fire magic, but Toya stops her, fearing that she might burn down the whole building, so Kohaku instantly transforms and unleashes a powerful breath, which blows the slimes away. However, the green slimes instantly start to approach them again, causing them to flee to the second floor. They soon discover that the green slimes don't come close, making them realize that they are marking territories. Suddenly, the stairs become slippery, and they discover that the lotion slimes on the second floor, which secret lubricating fluids, whenever they sense humans are the cause. They all slip off the stairs except Toya, whom Kohaku saves, and the green slimes begin to grope the girls, melting their clothes. Toya quickly saves them using the gate spell, and following this, they head to the next floor, where they come across some statues. Toya observes a slight movement of plots on the female statues and decides to check. As he touches the plots, he discovers they are really soft, and two slimes immediately fall off, making them realize that they are bust slimes that were created to mimic women's plots and also make up for the women with very small ones. The bust slimes see Yumina and immediately jump at her because she's got really small plots, making her angry as she declares that she is growing. After this, they reach the researcher's room and see a dead skeleton, which is apparently the researcher's. As they observe the room, some slimes immediately appear and transform into naked female figures, shocking them. The girls immediately block Toya's eyes from beholding evil, and after, the whole castle is burnt as Toya reasons that all of the researchers' work on slimes was so he could have access to a harem of beautiful naked women. They'd all return to the city, and one morning, Linz returns with a magic scroll from the antique shop because she wants to learn a new spell. However, she finds it difficult to read the scroll as the texts are written in ancient magic. So Toya uses the modeling spell to make a pair of glasses capable of reading the text for her. And after she begins practicing the new spell, but fails many times until her mana is exhausted. She soon becomes frustrated, so Toya decides to transfer some mana into her and explains how she could make the spell work, after which she successfully activates it. Following this, Toya and Elsa head to the royal capital to get new gauntlets for her after breaking the previous ones in the last mission. After returning from the royal capital, they receive a letter from the royal capital requesting their presence as they want to grant Toya knighthood as a reward for solving the incident the other day. Toya is surprised and asks if he can decline, and Yumina tells him yes, but he will have to state his reason for decline before the public. After attending the knighting ceremony and declining the knighthood, Toya is rewarded with a mansion, and he heads there together with his girls. On getting there, he reasons that the mansion is too big for 5 people to live in, shocking Linz, Elze, and Yea, who thought the house was meant for just him and Yumina. He tells them they are his family, saying he likes them all equally, surprising them even more. Later, a butler named Lion, Liam's elder brother, arrives with some other servants who will be attending to them, and just as soon as they get to work. The Duke and his ugly daughter with the funny name, Sushi, arrive, and he tells Toya he came with a request for him and his team. He explains that the nation plans to form an alliance with the Kingdom of Mizmida, which means they will need to prepare a venue for both kings to discuss matters, but adds that there could be problems along the way while transporting from one kingdom to another, so he wants Toya to help with his gate spell. However, Toya replies that he can only use gate to go to places he has only been to before, so the Duke tells him he needs him to travel to Mizmida. Toya and his team join the folks returning to Mizmida, and as they camp in a forest that night, they receive a report that some bandits are planning an attack. So Toya immediately uses his smartphone to check their locations before activating a paralysis spell that paralyzes all of them instantly right from his phone. The next morning, Toya heads out with Arma, Olga's sister, and Yumina. And while they walk through the market, they see Leon, one of the guards, escorting them, trying to buy a piece of jewelry for his crush, Olga. They approach him to ask who he is buying for, but he lies that it's for his mother. However, Toya intelligently asks Arma what kind of jewelry her sister might like, so Leon can know what to buy. Following that, as they tour the city, Kohaka and Toya suddenly perceive that they are being watched, so Toya decides to keep an eye out. They soon continue their journey, and later that night, while they camp in a forest, they notice that the animals in the forest are carrying on as though they are escaping from something. They wonder what it is and suddenly see a dragon flying across the sky, and Toya checks his phone only to discover it is heading for a nearby village. They soon reach the village, which is already set ablaze by the dragon. Toya immediately launches an attack with his magic, but the dragon dodges it and attacks with its fire breath. The dragon starts to pursue him while he runs off on Kohaku, and he manages to lead the dragon out of the city. He then unleashes multiple attacks, with Lin's following up with Water Blade, but the dragon resists the attacks and responds with a fire breath aimed at Lin's. However, Toya saves her before she becomes a barbecue. They all unleash several more attacks, but the dragon shows them they are just a bunch of weaklings. Toya tells Lin's to erect a huge defensive wall of ice behind him, and he immediately transforms it into a reflecting substance before sending a myriad of light attacks at it, which become deflected by the reflecting substance to set the dragon on fire, sending it to Nirvana. A bigger dragon suddenly appears and apologizes on behalf of the silly dragon, which just caused them trouble. It soon realizes how powerful Toya is, and it immediately apologizes for its rudeness before flying off. The next day, the village elder and his ugly assistant come presenting a fong they obtained from the dragon to appreciate him for his contribution to saving the village. He initially refuses it, but he is told he can use it to create a new weapon, since he broke his weapon during the fight with the dragon. He is then given a metal blade they also found in the dragon's eye, and he remembers that someone had attacked the dragon with the blade while it planned to attack him. The journey continues to Mizmida, and upon reaching there, the king of Mizmida welcomes them and thanks them for protecting Olga. Yumina introduces herself and delivers the Duke's letter about the alliance. Upon learning that it was Toya who defeated the dragon, the king challenges him to a duel, saying it's been a while since he faced a strong fighter. Before the duel begins, one of the king's subordinates begs Toya to give his king a good thrashing, surprising him. As soon as the duel begins, Toya activates the slip magic, which instantly causes the king to fall to the ground, thus losing the fight before it even starts. The king feels cheated and begs for one more fight, asking him not to use the spell this time, to which he agrees. The fight begins, and after some exchanges, Toya suddenly unleashes a fast attack using the boost spell, but the king disappears and reappears behind him with a strike at an insane speed, using a null spell called Axel, but Toya barely dodges it. He is shocked at the king's null magic and asked about it, after which the king explains how it works, so Toya instantly uses the same spell, shocking the king. Then, they both start fighting at insane speeds, invisible to the eye. After some exchanges, Toya finally checkmates the king, making the king accept defeat. Later that night, during a feast at the palace, Toya separates himself after being exhausted from taking too many pictures with his smartphone, and as he rests, a plushie walks over to him, calling him to come along. He follows the teddy bear to a room and meets a lady who introduces herself as Lean, the elder of the fairy folk, and that she is over 600 years old, shocking him. He asks if the teddy bear, which she named Paula, is a summoned beast, and she tells him no, saying it's the null magic program that is in effect. She further explains that the magic allows a user to input some commands into an inanimate object and make it operate. She then shows him a demonstration, after which he decides to try it out also, and he effortlessly activates it, shocking Lean, who then commends his magic talent. The next morning, Toya thinks of an idea based on the magic spell he just learned, so he immediately heads out to try some things, but on his way, he meets Yumina and Linz, who decide to follow him. On reaching an isolated place, he takes the dragon's fong he was given, and, using a combination of magic spells, He creates a gun that can also double function as a sword, and he inputs some programming into it. The girls love it and request theirs too, which he instantly makes for them. As they return from the unknown place, Kohaku and Toya perceive that they are being watched again, and Kohaku directs him to where the spies are, so Toya immediately dismisses the girls, saying he's got some quick business. He activates Axel, and suddenly appears behind the two dumb spies, who immediately try to escape, but he tails them with his phone and uses Excel again, appearing before them. This time, he shoots them with his newly made gun using rubber bullets and ties them up. He soon realizes that it's Lapis and Cecil, two of his maidservants, whom the King of Belfast has sent to watch over Princess Eumena without her knowledge. They tell Toya to keep this a secret, and he agrees. Following this, the King of Belfast successfully meets the King of Mismide through Toya's gate spell. After returning to the royal capital, Toya, out of his boredom, decides to make a bicycle, and as he does, the king appears to thank him for his contribution to the success of the alliance with the Kingdom of Mismide. The king also becomes interested in the bicycle he is trying to make, and after completion, the king decides to abandon the affairs of the nation to ride a bicycle with a little boy who isn't even 16 years old yet. The other girls are amused by this new vehicle, and Toya makes it for them too. The king soon requests that he also makes for his little daughter, Sushi, offering to pay for all the materials used. Toya immediately heads to the market to get some materials, and as he walks along, he observes some hoodlums bullying a young girl who had pickpocketed them. He intervenes, but the guys try to attack him, so he brings out his gun and shoots them with his rubber bullets. He takes the girl to have some food, and as she eats, she reveals all that happened to her in the past that has made her a pickpocket. Hearing this, Toya offers to give her a job where she won't have to worry about food or shelter anymore, but on the condition that she will stop pickpocketing. He takes her to his home and offers her a job as one of his maidservants. Following that, he takes Sushi along with Eumena shopping to buy the materials needed for her bicycle, and while at the market, they see Arma, who becomes excited to see them. Soon, they see Alba and Levon walking together, and immediately begin to spy on them, waiting to see what will happen between them. As they watch, they coincidentally meet the King of Mismide, who also joins them in watching two unserious lovers. After a while of watching and observing that Levon's got no riz nor balls to talk with women, a fight breaks out there, and Levon immediately steps up to defend a man who some tyrants are bullying. The men bring out knives to attack, but Toya and the King of Mismide quickly intervene and deal with the idiots. Levon soon discovers that it's Toya, even though he tried to conceal his face, and while they talk, he makes Levon confess his feelings to Olga, which she instantly accepts. On returning home, Toya is told he has guests, and he is surprised to discover it is Lean and Charlotte. He asks her why she visited him, and she tells him about a similar incident to the crystal magic beast he defeated at the ruins of the old royal capital, surprising him. Lean then tells him to prepare to use his gate spell, often as she will be staying in the royal capital for some time and will need his help to move around. However, Toya replies that he can only use the gate spell to jump to places he has been before, but Lean tells him about a new spell called Recall, which allows a user to read the thoughts of others and jump to any place in the memories read. She tells him she wants to visit the ruins in Ishan and suggests that he use Recall with Yea, who is from the country. He activates Recall, and on seeing some places in Ishan in her memory, he immediately opens Gate and leads everyone there, shocking him as he realizes it was the same place he saw in Yea's memory. He asks Lean where she wants to go, to which she replies that it's the Neura ruins, and Yea, not knowing the place, mentions that her father should know. She takes them to her house to meet her father, but upon reaching there, she only meets her mom and sister. She is told that her father accompanied the governor, Lord Airasu, to the battlefield after the Taikeda's armies suddenly advanced a few days back. She is shocked to hear this and instantly tells Toya to use Recall to transport her to where her father and brother are. Toya promises her mom and sister to ensure her father and brother return safely, but Yea's mother asks who the f*** in the whole world he is. They soon appear at Yea's father and brother's army camp using the gate spell, and Jotaro is shocked to see his sister. Toya sees the injured soldiers around and immediately heals them all, surprising everyone in the room. He then asks about the enemies attacking, and Jotaro tells him that he has no idea, saying they should be dead already but are still alive and do not die, except their Oni masks are broken. Lean suggests that they might be artifacts or magic relics, So Toya decides to try something on his unreasonably overpowered smartphone again, as he usually does. He pins the locations of all the Takeda army and activates multiple magic that instantly rains heavy attacks on them, isekaiing them. They'd all soon meet Ieyasu, and while they plan on how to take down the Takeda army, an ugly lady named Tsubaki suddenly appears with a letter from Kazaka, one of Takeda's 4 main generals who has been locked in an underground prison, asking them to stop Kansukaide, the villain controlling the army of the dead. Toya tells them to leave it to him and his team, and he uses recall to read Tsubaki's memory before transporting himself, Lin and Tsubaki, to the Takeda camp later that night. At the Takeda camp, Lin uses her invisibility spell on them, and Toya tries to use the gate spell to jump into the territory. But it is blocked by an unknown barrier, which they suspect to have been erected by Kansukaide. Then, they head to the underground prison to meet Kosako without being noticed, thanks to the invisibility spell. They soon rescue the main generals, and after, the Toya tries to locate Kansukaide on his no phone, but can't because of the barrier. Lin suggests it must be a talisman blocking him, and one of the generals offers to take them to the talisman so they can destroy it. They soon find the talisman barrier, and Toya destroys it with his gun, and then pins down the location of all the Oni soldiers before raining lightning attacks on them, leaving only Kansukaide alive. Using the gate spell, they transport to Kansukai's location. One of the generals immediately launches an attack, but he is resisted by an ugly-looking goblin-like man, who used to be their lord but is now under Kansukai's control. The generals are shocked, and they restrain from fighting him because they respect him. But Toya doesn't give a shit about respect as he brings out his gun and blasts his thick skull. Kansukaide reasons that this is some crazy dude, and he immediately reveals the immortal gem in his left eye, which will keep him from dying. But he soon realizes that he's a big fool as Toya activates the Apport's spell and draws the gem into his hand. The gem is soon destroyed, isekaiing Kansukaide instantly. The next morning, Kusaka tells Toya that the Niura ruins he is looking for is located on the seafloor, surprising him, and then he uses recall to read Kusaka's memory, after which he heads there with his team. Upon seeing it's a cool place for a sus party, he goes to call the Duke and the King, who have nothing else to do than waste time, so that they can spend some fun time together. And while everyone is involved in one activity or the other, Toya meets Lin, and they decide to start investigating the ruins, which it is their reason for coming there. Toya jumps into the ocean and swims to the seafloor to find the ruins, but as he approaches, he can't hold his breath any longer, so he quickly returns to the water's surface, but not without drinking some salty water. After a while, he asks Lin if she knows any spell that allows someone to function underwater, but she tells him she never learned it. However, Kohaku tells him he knows one who controls water of all types who can help, and he recommends a magic beast called the Black Emperor. Following that, they head to an open space, and Toya summons the Black Emperor using the synergy of his mana and Kohaku's. When the Black Emperors see Kohaku, they are shocked that he stoops so low to allow a human to be his master. But Kohaku breaks the good news that Toya will soon become their master too. The arrogant Black Emperors challenge Toya to a fight in which, if he wins, they will form a pact with him. As soon as the fight begins, Toya activates Slip and programs an infinite loop that causes them to continue to fall until they eventually surrender. They accept him as their master, and he names them Kyukuyu and Sango. After this, they transform into smaller creatures for easy movement with Toya, and they soon activate a protective shield around him, which then enables him to move freely in the water. On entering the ruins, he heads to the center, and the Black Emperors tell him to channel his magic into it, which immediately activates it and transports him to a strange facility. A lady suddenly approaches him with her floodgate advertised for free, but he tells her to shut her gate. She introduces herself as Seska and tells him that the floating garden, called the Garden of Babylon, was built by her creator, Professor Regina Babylon, who also built her to serve as the garden's control terminal for over 5,000 years, shocking him. She then tells him she has found him qualified to be her master, and she puts all the care of the garden into his hand, surprising him as he wonders how he is qualified. She tells him only someone who possesses all affinities could have activated the ruins, but not only that, but also the fact that he is a Sigma male, and didn't fall for her trap when she showed him her panties. Toya goes to call his colleagues, transporting them into the garden using the gate spell, and the garden amuses them. They soon separate after some unnecessary conversation, and while Yumina and the other girls tour the garden, she tells them she wants to have a chat with them. And when you would think the princess wants to hold an intelligent conversation, she asks them if they have all decided to be Toya's brides, as discussed in a previous conversation. But they are all just a bunch of idiots who haven't still accepted their feelings for him. Meanwhile, Toya, Lin, and Seska continue to talk about the garden, and Seska reveals that the garden was a complete whole until it became severed into parts and drifted away from one another. Toya checks his phone to see if he can locate the other parts of the garden but can't find them. And then Seska tells him he will have to complete the registration for the garden, which is now in his care. While he wonders what he will need to do, she grabs him and exchanges saliva with him, shocking everyone. She then tells him she's collected his genetic information, and the ownership of the garden is now transferred to him. Linz immediately decides to shoot her shot too, so she confesses her love for him, followed by some saliva exchange too, shocking the other girls. They all return home, and Seska is accepted as a new maidservant in Toya's mansion. Following this, all the girls start to compete for their place in Toya's heart, all fighting to be his bride, and he becomes concerned that he might not fall short in his duty as a husband, thus not making them happy. Seska meets him and reports that Professor Babylon has a message for him. She brings out a USB cord to connect to his smartphone. Professor Babylon's hologram suddenly becomes displayed on his phone screen, and she tells him about a particular history no one gives a shit about. She tells him she can predict the future, which is why she could prepare a hologram for this situation. And Toya immediately asks what will happen between him and his girls, but she refuses to tell him. After the conversation, Toya visits God immediately to tell him about his relationship issues. The old man summons the god of love, who seems more like a Barbie fan, and she advises him to think of his happiness first before the girls. After this, he gathers the 4 girls and tells them he is not ready to marry as he is not mature enough to bear responsibility for another's life yet. However, they tell him they will wait for him no matter how long. Meanwhile, Lin, Seska, and Charlotte are watching from the outside, and Seska reveals that, according to the professor, Toya will end up with 9 wives. Who else thinks Toya is a king of Harem? If you have reached this far, let's confuse the fake fans by commenting "Rip Toya." Also, give this video a like, subscribe to this channel, and turn on the notification bell. See you on the next one.